my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling and welcome back to the channel. Today we're reacting to episode 19 of series 1 of Vinland Saga. Last episode we saw Canute kind of have an awakening, a realization that perhaps religion doesn't have all the answers that he desires. Much in the same way that we saw Anne begin to question how can people be expected to live up to the weight of morality, to this expectation of achieving paradise when it feels almost out of reach, that no one can really live a sinless life? We see that Canute kind of has a similar perspective in terms of saying, Father, I no longer seek your salvation. I'll create my own paradise here on earth that is achievable to all, that is not weighed down by this weight of moral expectation. So he's saying, if you deny us paradise because of one mistake, then I will ensure that a paradise is created that will accept all, that won't discriminate, that won't judge. Because we talk about the act of discrimination and about how you're supposed to love everybody, but then if you look in the Bible, in the First Testament, there is quite a lot of discrimination in terms of God having a favorite people, a chosen people. And that is in itself discriminatory because it doesn't align with the philosophy that the priest is teaching. And even the priest was being discriminatory in saying that the people in the village should be saved because they themselves are Christians, they're like us. So he also wasn't being quite honest with himself. He wants to preach about this love that is embracing and accepting of all, but he himself also can't practice it. I think it's almost unachievable. It's not something that you can expect someone to do. And yes, Thors could be seen as this shining example of that. But even Thors was victim of that discriminatory love because he picked Thorfinn over his own life. He picked Thorfinn over shedding blood. He would have killed for Thorfinn. There's no way that he wouldn't have. So to set this ambition that we should love everyone equally and love our enemy is quite unrealistic. And again, we see that sort of hypocritical nature come into it in the fact that even Canute knows that it's not really something that is achievable, that everyone is going to have biases and that people shouldn't be innately punished. So Canute is kind of questioning this idea that the only way to be selfless is in death, because he doesn't believe that that is true. He doesn't believe that we only live in order to die, that that shouldn't be how we exist. He's questioning God's perception of trials and tribulations for everlasting life. He's sort of saying, well, what is the point then of us being here if we're only here to suffer? And he's happy to forsake salvation if it means creating a paradise in which this love and acceptance and embracement of people can happen without the suffering that comes with it. If he can ensure that people find meaning and purpose other than this glorification of death, because the glorification of death is both prevalent in the Scandinavian culture, but also in the Anglo-Saxon Christian culture in terms of if you die, you go to heaven if you live a good life. So again, the whole weight of it is death. It is living a good life in order to benefit in death, much in the same way that you die with honor in the Scandinavian culture, you go to Valhalla. So both these cultures are driving home this purpose of everything you do in life is to benefit you in death. And what Canute is trying to say is we shouldn't have to only focus on death as the only option, that we should be living for the purpose of living. We should be embracing and loving and working to build a paradise here on earth whilst we have the time to enjoy it, rather than only focusing on the afterlife. And That's why he is saying that he wants to forsake salvation. He will build this paradise. He will be the king that people need, the king that people want. He'll be benevolent and kind and embracing of all, regardless. And showing that death isn't the only way in which to be selfless, in which to love and embrace and give back, that you can do it in life. Similar to Anne, this whole wrestling with why are we only here if it's to be tested? Why are we existing solely for this cruel purpose? This doesn't feel like love. It's almost like Canute is calling the priest out on the hypocrisy of Christian love, because he's saying, well, if you're saying that the only true love that the Bible is teaching is giving ourselves back in death because we're truly selfless in that moment, then why does God have a chosen people? Why does God punish and smite those down who don't believe in him? Why doesn't God embrace everyone equally? Because God also discriminates. So this idea of not discriminating is just a completely impossible expectation to put on humanity as a whole. And I think it's good in theory, but not in practice. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Canute's progression goes over the next couple of episodes, because we don't have much long left of series 1, and I'm not quite sure how long series 2 is, but it will be really, really fascinating to watch him, especially if we see him interact with his dad again. But it's interesting that when he says to Bourne, is there any way to end your suffering other than death? And the way to do that is showing him love and affection and care. And it's not discriminatory love, because he doesn't really know Bjorn, but he embraces him and he accepts him as a brother, as someone that is kin to him. And in that moment, he's able to calm and rationalize him. So he is showing that it is possible to be selfless, even in life, that you don't have to die in order to benefit others, in order to show this concept of selfless love, of embracing those that are maybe different to ourselves. But of course, everyone is going to show aspects of discrimination because of our connections to people. That's kind of impossible to avoid, much in the same way that Canute would probably have discriminatory love towards Ragnar, and Ragnar had discriminatory love for Canute. Thor's had discriminatory love for his family and his village. He would prioritize them over anybody else. So I think it's showing that you can also be selfless as well as loving those closest to you. I think it's not one or the other. It's a lot more complex than the priest tries to make it out, which is saying, oh, there's only one true form of love, which just isn't the case. It's not the truth. But if we're talking about selfless love, I think you can still have selfless love and still prioritize what's important to you. I think you can still embrace those that are different to yourself while still accepting and treating everyone with kindness and fairness. I think one doesn't negate the other, because we've seen that Thors can practice this selfless love, but at the same time prioritize what is important to him. So I think the priest saying to Canute, I've seen a miracle, is because Canute is practicing this selfless love in embracing Bjorn. But Canute at least understands that there are different forms of love, and his ability to practice selfless love doesn't negate his connections to the people he cares about. And I think that's sort of why he's pulling away from Christianity in a sense, because he's saying, well, if the only way to give back is in death, then what's the point? We need to be able to live our lives. We need to be able to build our own paradise. We need to be able to embrace those around us, but at the same time build love and connection with those that we want to form attachments to. I don't think it's as simple as one love is better than the other love. I think there's just different aspects of love, which the priest does say in a different episode. I'm not sure if he says it's a different type of love, or if he says it's not love, or at least it's not the love that he's searching for. I'd have to go back and watch that episode, but it's the conversation between the two brothers. It's almost like he's saying that it's not love because they're not selflessly loving. They're loving because they are connected. They see themselves as brothers. But again, love is multifaceted. I don't think it's one is better than the other. But again, it also highlights the hypocrisy because no one can truly be entirely selfless. We can do selfless acts, but no one is entirely selfless. I think the expectation of that is to completely negate the complexity of what it means to be a person, of what it means to be human. But I've rambled, so we are just going to get into episode 19. I mean, you did kick him through the air. I don't think he's okay. Has he lost his memory? Oh, he's probably got a concussion, bless him. You have to know when to pick your battles, though, which is something Thorfinn's not very good at. He's quite hot-headed. Thank you! Listen to him for once. Yay! We're gonna know more about that little friendship. Flashback time! Helga. Who you've never met. Wait! They're related! What? So he's Thor's uncle and Thorfinn's great uncle. Oh! You thought he'd lost him. I love that he's not afraid to cry because he doesn't see it as a weakness. He went for Helga and their baby. So he had to sneak in disguise. Oh god! He obviously let him go, right? Like, stop making noise. Just like, we don't have time. Thorkill, shut up. Listen. They're going. They're leaving. They're running away. So what did they think happened to Helga and Yelva? That they just disappeared in the middle of the night? I imagine they went looking for Helga as the daughter of the leader of the Yoms Vikings. Oh. I love when he says what a real warrior is, and it glances to Yelva's face. It's because he's a father now. He doesn't need it anymore. Whoa! That was so cool. As I said, he's more menacing when he disarms people rather than when he kills. Oh, so he does know that Thors is dead. Because he kept
俺
talking
には
about him
ま
in
だ
the
わから
present
ない。
tense, so it
俺に
was
はま
quite
だ届かな
unsure.
い。ここではないどこかへ。きっとそこで本当の戦士ってやつになったんだろう。
He was a real warrior.
トルフィン、奴はアイスランドでどんな風に過ごしていた？
嫌なこった。
ええー、俺は話してやったじゃねえか。
うるせえ、知るか。
トールズから何にも学ばなかったのがバレるのが
Oh
恥ずかしいんだ
no,
ろ。
he's poking at him.
待て、
話せ、てめえから殺すぞ。
普通にやれば間違いなく負けるぞ。
Pick your battles, Thorfinn. You're too brash.
野郎は誇りを重んじる。決闘の誓いは守るだろう。
He's limbering up. He's getting ready.
敵を思い出せ。決闘で俺を倒すことだろう。
So yeah, it was really unclear that he knew that Thors was already dead. I should have suspected that he wasn't just going to be happy with letting him go because he prides honor over everything else. So the fact that he was willing to just forsake the Jomsvikings to disappear when this is the code and life that they live by and to forsake it all would be incredibly insulting to him as somebody who is a warrior that appreciates and values the life that they live. So, yeah, it makes more sense that he did lash out, but I thought maybe he did just let him go because he was very emotional about losing him and that maybe he understood where he's coming from. But then putting previous episode in to perspective where he says, "Do you know what a real warrior is?" He's hoping that Thorfinn understands because he didn't understand and still doesn't understand. It's been 15 years and he's still deliberating it. The reason that Thorkill and Thorfinn both don't understand what Thors means by "I now know what a real warrior is because their lives are still intimately linked with the sword, with battle. Thorkill is obsessed with finding the next fight in achieving honor and valor from his battles, from being a warrior, whereas Thorfinn is driven by revenge and this need to kill everyone that was involved in his father's death to the point that he's blinded by rage, blinded by fury, that he can't see what his father's trying to teach him. His father's message is essentially to live in peace, is to protect the ones that you love, but through pacifist means. He doesn't need a sword to protect the people he loves. He doesn't need to conquer and commit acts of violence and to harm others in order to exist in this world. And that's something he came to the realization of, that he wants to be a better man. He wants to be a better person. He wants to show compassion and acceptance and embrace others. He doesn't find honor or value in the taking of other people's lives. He finds honor and value in doing good deeds, in being there for his family, in raising his daughter, in being a loving husband, and obviously eventually raising his son too, and trying to entrench these messages into him. And the reason they don't understand what he's trying to teach them is because of how being a warrior and its association with violence and bloodshed is so intrinsically connected that they can't fathom that there is a different way of being, that there's a different way of becoming a warrior. Thors is seen as this really bizarre individual because he refuses to use a sword, he refuses to shed blood, he takes a pacifist approach in disarming rather than taking a life, even to protect those that he cares about. And he would give his own life to protect those that he cares about rather than shed blood and take someone else's. That's completely opposite to everything their culture teaches them, raises them to believe in. So, of course, Thor's message is going to be incredibly confusing. And Thorfinn may have understood it if he had had longer to be around his father, if he didn't witness his father being struck down before him. But until he comes to realize that this path that he is going down, this obsession with revenge and shedding blood and the use of the dagger as the only way in which to get ahead in life, until he leaves that behind, he's never going to really understand what his father means by being a real warrior or knowing what a real warrior is, because his life is paved with blood, is paved with violence. He doesn't know any other way to exist now. He's been with Askeladd and his crew for far longer than he was ever with his father. He's become ingrained in this ideology of conquest and plunder, but also revenge. That's why he's here. He's not here really to benefit from plundering, but he participates in it because he has to prove himself in order to duel Askeladd. But he is primarily here for revenge. But until he lets down the dagger, until he steps away from this path of revenge, he is never going to fully understand what his father means, what his father wanted for him. And it's just so sad. I hope series 2 explores Thorfinn living this peaceful life, or at least attempting to make amends for his past and to move forwards and deal with the trauma he's gone through. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how series 2 will play out. It's just an incredibly beautiful message that there is a different way of being a man. There is a different way of showing strength that doesn't rely on violence or taking the lives of others or in conquest. It's a positive representation of masculinity in stepping away from violence, but still showing the strength and courage that he possesses and his desire to continue protecting his family without taking the lives of others. It is showing that there is an alternative, that you don't have to rely on a sword in order to get by within society, that there is a better way to be a man without following this philosophy of ingrained violence, of socializing violence into the lives of young boys, of becoming blinded to the act itself. It's showing an awareness of what it means to exist in this world in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have if you don't question the act of battle, because you've bought into this idea of glory and honor and value that comes from the battle, that comes from killing. So it is a contrast between the two different types of what it means to be a man within the society. Thor's masculinity and the masculinity of someone like Thorkill. You have someone that is proud of the violence and destruction that he causes, and you have someone that is compassionate and strong and courageous. It's in a sense showing that Thors is no less of a man than anyone else because he chooses to forsake violence. He is still as much of a man. He just is someone that is compassionate and wise and willing to think about what it means to live within the society and to question its values, to question whether this is something he wants to participate in and pass it on to his children. And he decided that that's not what he wants to do. He's showing that there is a different way of being a man, a more progressive way forward, whilst at the same time making him the strongest character in the show, which all the more emphasizes the fact that his idea of masculinity, his representation of masculinity, is not by any means weak and isn't something to be snubbed or disregarded, but is something to be admired and valued. In going against this socialized idea of what it means to be a man based on its connection to battle and killing.
今だけでいい。俺を参謀として認めろ。俺たち二人がこの場を生き延びるためだ。
Just accept it, Thorfinn. It's for your benefit and for his.
大将が通るしんならこの当時はフレイヤ神か。
Hey yo.
神ちゃん。
Don't mock Canute.
の化身だ。
Canute is not something to be snubbed. He's beautiful, but he's strong in his own way. Oh god, he's fast, isn't he?
そのざま。最後まで誇りを持って戦え。
I wonder what Askeladd told him to do.
クソか。
奴の方から近づくように仕向ける。
Is Askeladd gonna
あれはモールドンの戦いだったが。
hit him in the back of the leg?
激しい戦いだった。ほんの一瞬だが確かに見た。
The giant fall.
あの無
敵のトルケルが崩れ落ちる瞬間。うまいぞ。万策尽きたと奴に思わせるんだ。
どうしたトルフィン、もう逃げ疲れたのか。
Make him underestimate you.
もう少し根性見せるかと思ったのによ。
Oh, he does. He's biding his time.
いい位置だ。よくやったトルフィン。
Not running away. It's picking his battles. Not being brash. For once.
一瞬の隙。奴の弱点は
Crafty. He blinded him. Even he can't quite believe that he did it.
大将。バカ野郎。獲物もなしで。
They're not just going to allow you to kill the captain.
てめえら、よくも俺に恥をかかせて
Oh,
くれ
he's
た
pissed.
な。
Off in one fair and square.
俺の血統を怪我してくれたな。
Has he lost his eye to him?
戦士の誇りとは何だ。恨んでくれていい。だがあのガキは殺す。俺を殺すなら殺せ。だがあんたは生きろ。あんたの他に誰がこの500人のけだものどもをまとめられるって言うんだ。
He knows he's right.
この戦で死ぬ者は犬死にだぞ。
兄じゃ。生きているのか。
He's not
お
alive.
じさん、誰。
Oh, he is alive.
兄ち
飽きもせず、よくもこれほどに殺し合うものだな。そなたも一党の首領なら、誇りと潔さを示してみせるがいい。
ああ、うるせえ。んなことてめえに言われなくても分かってんだよ。
Then why don't you do it then?
トルフィンを離せ。この決闘は俺の負けだ。
He did lose, though.
俺の負けだ。ちった格好つけさせろ。不愉快だ。
Oh, he's
50年生き
pissed.
てきて今日ほど不愉快な日はねえぜ。
Oh, he's angry.
誰ぞ。生きたきゃいけ。俺は残る。
は？俺が何のためにここまで？
黙って見てろ。
This is why he's backing Canute.
あんたは餌で人質で金づ
Is he gonna tell them that it's pointless because his father wanted him dead?
いいから見てろ。短い間にお口が一丁前になったじゃねえか。
He lost the person closest to him. He had to grow
昨
up.
日寄った村にラグナルの死体があったぜ。
私に人質の価値はない。なぜなら、父は
Wanted him dead.
私を愛してなどいないからだ。私は兄の備えに過ぎぬ。だが、そのことが進化の者たちを争わせ、
Oh, is Forkill wanting to side with Canute on the basis that it might not be an easy battle?
つまりスベン王は俺があんたを殺すことを期待していると。
暗殺
Possibly.
に比べれば戦士は温当だ。父王自身の手が小殺しに汚れぬ。
仮にこのまま見逃したとしてどこへ行く気だ。
父王と喧嘩だ。
Of course, Forkill's gonna want to be involved in that.
どうせ惜しむような命ではない。
俺はな、命は惜しくないなんて抜かすやつは腐るほど見てきた。大抵は軽くこづいただけで泣いて命乞いしやがる。てめえもその口だろう。あ？
He's not gonna flinch. He truly doesn't care. He's got nothing left to lose. He's already lost the person he loves most.
お前らはその目で何を見てる？
Pause.
なんだ。
I said they were very similar. And he recognizes that in him.
こんな俺でもな、
The same
た
eyes.
った一つ後悔してることがある。なぜあの時俺はトールズについていかなかったのかって。
Oh.
あの時奴についてってれば本当の戦士の秘密を知ることができただろう。
Instead of being haunted by it for the last 15 years. He's gonna follow Canute. Of course he is.
その喧嘩助立ちしよう。はっ。俺
They're
は
like,
あん
wait,
たに
what?
ついてくぜ。その代わりぬるいことしやがったら即ぶっ殺すかんな。じゃあ俺たちは
Thorfinn looks so confused. But Asgard knew this was going to happen. He knew that Canute was going to be someone that could rally people to his side, that he was a different type of man, that he could be this kind, benevolent king that his mother told him to essentially follow. And if he can't follow Artorias, because Artorias isn't going to come back, then Canute is the next best thing.
ラグナル殿を殺したのは私。
Oh my god!
お切りしてください。ですがもし
He doesn't want
お
to
聞きくださると
live a lie anymore. What
お
the
役に
fuck?
立ちます。この一命に変えて
I'm surprised he told him.
ラグナルの分も働け。それが弔いだ。
必ず
But he's giving his sword and becoming the servant to the king that his mum told him to do so. He's living up to what his mum made him promise to do.
なんだおめえ、マネックすんな。
家来になったのは俺の方が先なんだよ。
まあとにか
Stop
く
copying
仲良
me.
くやろうぜ。おめえの手下はあらかた殺しちゃったけど、水に流
I
せよな。
love Forkill. He's like, let's be friends.
どの道水に流すしかねえだろうが。
I adore the show. But again, it's just a different type of masculinity. It's showing that there is a different way to exist in this world without relying on needless bloodshed, on fighting one another, on giving your life pointlessly. That's one of the big speeches that Canute gave last episode, which was instead of giving your life meaninglessly, follow me and I will give it meaning. I will give it purpose. I will direct you, because they're so busy fighting each other over every little thing that it has no value. And that's what he's attempting to say is follow me and there is a purpose, there is a meaning. I can create this paradise where everyone can coexist with each other instead of squabbling and bickering and fighting over every little thing and ending each other's lives as if it means nothing. He wants to give value to the lives of those who lay it down for him to get him into this position of power so that he can unify those around him, to bring an end to this conflict, to ensure that this paradise is created if God isn't willing to give them that salvation. I love that we see this side of him, that he's able to rally people to his side so effortlessly. I love that we are seeing this benevolent king come into fruition. And I've said a few times that Canute reminds me of Thor's philosophy of there being a different way to be a warrior. And then Thorkill recognizing that there is a similarity in the look in their eyes and that it is one that he hates because he doesn't understand it. It frustrates him because he doesn't know what's going on in their minds. That juxtaposition between Canute and Thor's is further emphasizing that Canute is pretty much an embodiment of Thor's philosophy. He never knew the man, didn't know his philosophy, but he's almost a walking embodiment of it, showing that it isn't unique solely to Thor's. It exists in the hearts of other men as well. And it just takes the courage and tenacity to live by this philosophy for you to become a different type of warrior and to rally those beside you. And Thorkill's recognition that he regrets not going with Thor's, that maybe he could have become a real warrior, he could have known what a real warrior was, could be read as his understanding that for the last God knows how many years since he's interacted with Thor's, he's lived moving from one battlefield to the next with no real sense of direction or purpose. He just is constantly looking for the next fight, constantly looking to gratify this need, this craving for something more, but it never being satisfied, never being full. And again, links back to what I was saying about Thorfinn and this path of revenge. It's almost similar. this gratuitous violence and this endless bloodshed and this endless battle, it gets old over time. It doesn't fill the hole that you're currently feeling. It doesn't satisfy you. It doesn't give you purpose or meaning. It's just an endless, repetitive cycle. The fact that he realizes that if he had gone with Fours, perhaps life would have been different. Perhaps he wouldn't be floating from one battlefield to the next, switching sides because it makes it more challenging, because he needs something to make his life more exciting, because nothing is quite fulfilling the ache within him, is healing that regret and probably anger at himself for never having gone with Fours. And even though he recognizes that regret now, it probably is something that's lingered internally that has had an impact on how he behaves going forward. It has an impact on how he interacts with the world around him and the people around him. And as well, it's this recognition as a leader that he needs to treat people with respect, and he needs to almost bring himself back into reality. He can't dispute Canute because he knows that he's right, that he hasn't been behaving the way that a leader should. He's getting ahead of himself. He's rash. He's similar to Thorfinn in the fact that both of them are seeking something, but what they're seeking at the moment isn't what they need. It's not going to satisfy them. And they're going to keep doing the same thing in this toxic cycle in the hope that it will heal them, but it won't. And it's only when they begin to depart from that and find new meaning and new purpose that they'll begin to heal. For Thorfinn, that's going to be when he steps away from this path of revenge and seeks a life more aligned with his father and his philosophies. He'll begin to find new purpose and new meaning of the world around him. Much in the same way, Thorkill is now finding that new purpose in following Canute, in recognizing that Canute embodies Thor's philosophy of what a real warrior is. And in following Canute, he might actually find out what that means and see it for himself, and how to find a sense of direction in life that isn't solely motivated by violence and the next thrill of the battle. And I still love that we saw when Fours is saying that he knows what a real warrior is now, and it cuts to Yalva's face. It's becoming a father, feeling that love for his child, that understanding of how fragile and precious life is, that it clicks in him that this isn't what he wants for himself or for his family, and that there has to be something better, that he has to pursue a life away from this in order to be the man that he wants to be, in order to be the warrior that he wants to be. That strength lies not in the blade of the sword, but in the heart of the warrior. But it reminds me very much of Thor's philosophy and the way in which he moves through life, but also relates to Thorkill and Thorfinn, and how their obsession with violence and battle and conflict, and Thorfinn's revenge, obviously, we can't forget that bit, is what's driving and motivating and pushing them. But when they begin to realize that it's not about the strength of the weapon, but the strength of the mind, they'll begin to move away, hopefully, from those destructive tendencies and look at pursuing a new and happier life that is more fulfilling and advantageous. I think that's all I want to say for now. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!